radical left has taken over the Democratic Party.
Hello and welcome to Think Progressively, covering politics and all the other chaos life has to offer. This is episode 2, recorded on Tuesday, August 25th from Milwaukee. I'm Joe.
And I'm Jason.
And on today's episode, we'll be discussing the decades-long assault on the United States Postal Service. But first, the headlines.
Fake news.
Fake news.
Fake, disgusting news.
And first up in headlines, the DNC just happened, and it was kind of a big deal. I'm going to be honest, it was actually pretty good. Obviously, the first virtual convention that's ever happened in U.S. history, and it didn't suck. It could have been a little cringy at times. I know there were times where they tried to add that fake applause, or not the fake applause, but they added in that virtual applause for people.
Yeah.
And I think they learned their lesson within the first 3 days.
Yeah, I didn't much care for the cutaway to people in their living rooms.
Nope. I think they took great advantage of it being virtual. They had some pretty serious speeches from the Obamas, from some Republicans, and even some progressives like Bernie and Elizabeth. So I think that was pretty good. Did you see the roll call?
Yeah, it was interesting. I liked the states that went to someplace significant for their state. It was nice to see.
You mean like Kansas, where they just had a guy in a field?
Yeah, just in the middle of nowhere.
They're just not doing anything, just sitting there all alone.
Yeah, they didn't even have the marker to say what state he's from.
This is what you get when you come to Kansas. Did you see Rhode Island's?
Yeah, the
calamari
official state appetizer.
Yeah, literally
brought to you by TGI Friday.
They said they were the calamari comeback state.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
They must really be into squid there.
Oh my God.
I liked Alabama's with the Edmund Pettus Bridge and the way it was lit up in that shot. Very cinematic.
There was one state, I can't remember which one it was, but it was literally just in a back parking lot of some random building. And it had a couple of trucks just in the background of it. And I'm like, this is it? You guys had all this time to prepare, and then you just go out into the back parking lot to do your thing?
Yeah.
Really? Oh, that was ridiculous. But yeah, there were a couple of really cool ones. And then I do think with it being virtual, it actually sped it up a lot more too, which made me pretty happy. I mean, I think the whole thing took 30 to 45 minutes as opposed to an hour and a half. Mm-hmm. So that was nice. I appreciate that. And actually the whole thing took a lot less time too when they were trying to condense, I think, 3 hours a night down into 2, which means the speeches were all shorter. I mean, and I think that's okay too. I mean, you wouldn't want to see a 45-minute speech on TV.
I don't want to see one in person either.
Good point. So I think hopefully that's a good thing for the next couple of conventions coming up. Hopefully they'll adopt them. What speaker was your favorite?
I didn't care about what he said, but the one that I paid the most attention to is Joe Biden. Just listening to how he was pronouncing words and making sure he was making some sense.
He made it through. And by gosh, that's all we needed from him.
Yep. He didn't totally screw up.
And I do think this puts a lot of rest to the complete BS claims of Joe Biden has dementia. He is losing it. He can't form a sentence or anything like that. It was fine. It was a perfectly fine speech. It was a bit odd though. The whole thing about it with him talking about fighting for the light against the darkness thing, and we need to stand together to fight for the light.
I think he was watching his grandkids play a video game or something right before then.
It's not like it was straight out a Disney movie or something like that. But on that platform, it seemed very culty, and I didn't appreciate that too much. But I get it. We're trying to come together. It's not necessarily about pushing any actual platform. It's just getting our nation together as one type of thing. And that's what they're trying to do. Just unify, right? So I get it.
Yeah, the big tent.
And did you see the amount of religious references that were in there?
Yeah. It's not my favorite, obviously. As an atheist, I don't think it has any place in politics. I don't care what anyone's religion is. But at this point, we're running against the devil, so I guess.
And I get it, right? When we're fighting against someone who's it's the whole Republican side, right? When they try to paint us as the horrible, heathenistic, godless, amoral left, and they're trying to do things to paint them no, you can still be a Christian and be a Democrat. It's okay.
Joe Biden wants to hurt God,
right? And it's so stupid. That's where you have to put out all those lines where he's led by his faith. he really pays attention to and he prays hard for it. I'm like, oh my God, shut up. The other one was like, Joe Biden goes to church so often. I don't care. I don't care how much a guy goes to church to listen to the Bible and misinterpret the Bible. Thank you.
They should attack him on that. God hates Joe Biden. He doesn't listen to him.
Right.
He prayed to end coronavirus, and look what happened.
Right. I don't like it. I'm kind of upset that secular people had to get thrown under the bus for it to happen, but I get it, and I'll take it for this time. I'll take crap for a couple more years than to give Trump any more time in the White House. I know you didn't watch as much as I did, but man, I gotta hand it to the Obamas. They did such a great job, and I get that both their speeches were a little bit vapid. It was actually kind of interesting because you can see when you look at both their speeches back to back, a lot of their content is actually pretty similar. So you get to see their speaking styles really come out. And I guess you can call it a hot take, but I think Michelle Obama is a much better speaker than Barack.
Much better?
Much better.
Wow.
I mean, Barack's an exemplary orator, but I don't know, he just doesn't have the emotional component that Michelle does. When she was just sitting there right in front of a camera and just giving us the whole, we need to be better part and talking about empathy and understanding that we need to have a better vision for our future. It connects more, I think. I don't know.
Because she didn't order the drone killings of dozens.
I mean, there's that. So I got to give it to Michelle for doing a great job at solidifying Democrats for voting for Biden. And actually, I think the DNC did a great job at solidifying Biden's favorability overall. What do you think?
Yeah, you normally do get a little bit of a bump right after the convention. I don't think it's going to be huge.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah, and this race in particular, I think most people have already kind of chosen sides. Maybe you might see some swing after debates, but I'm pretty sure we're fairly stable right now. Anything can happen, certainly. Huge swings have occurred before, but I'm hoping anyway, seeing as how Biden has a lead in most polls, that it's going to hold true.
Yeah, and I agree. But what I do think actually makes me happy about the DNC is, you're right, getting persuadables, I don't think it's really going to make much of a difference at this point. You may get a little bump, but that may be it. What makes me happy is Biden's actual favorability has gone up. It's gone up at least 9% with Democrats saying that they now view him as more favorable, or at least now when they're going to vote for Joe Biden, they want to vote for Joe Biden because they like Biden as opposed to just hating Trump. His favorability has also gone up with Black voters, Hispanic voters, and I think some young voters as well. That's good. I mean, when we're talking about people just legitimately voting for Biden, especially when we talk about having a lot of people on the left and a lot of progressives worried about him, I think just solidifying that confidence, even just a little bit, can do tons of good come November.
Well, let's hope.
Yeah. And then this week we have the Republican National Convention. Are you going to watch that at least?
No, I maybe I'll check out some highlights, but I cannot stand listening to anybody from the Trump family. And
you don't want to listen to Trump every single
day
night?
No, and I don't want to listen to Eric, and I don't want to listen to Don Jr. or Don Jr.'s girlfriend or Tiffany. Do they have Barron up there yet?
No, they don't. They didn't have Barron. Oh my God! Well, no, you just answered my question. Right? You already didn't see any of it, but Jesus, Don Jr. was absolutely insane, and Charlie Kirk was insane.
Big surprise there.
Oh, no kidding! Where he was talking about how they're gonna come for their Western values. I'm like, Jesus, dude. Oh my God, the McCloskeys. Jason, the McCloskeys.
The gun-toting, what were they? They're defending their property against the evil looters.
I just got it. I have to share some quotes with you, Jason. This is just the best. This is the husband talking. Whether it's the defunding of police, ending cash bail so criminals can be released back out to the streets the same day to riot again, or encouraging anarchy and chaos on our streets, it seems as if the Democrats no longer view the government's job as protecting honest citizens from criminals, but rather protecting criminals from honest citizens.
I don't understand the new focus on ending cash bail. Do they understand what bail is supposed to be?
I don't know.
If you're not rich, you stay in jail. What the hell is that? It's even more, the Republicans even more going to we are the party of the privileged and the rich and screw everyone else. Trump should know about bail if he doesn't just ask anybody who was on his campaign.
And we're going to get to that too. And this is Mark, the husband, talking about Cory Bush, the current Democratic nominee who just won the primary. That Marxist revolutionary who is now going to be the congresswoman from the 1st District of Missouri. These radicals are not content with marching in the streets. They want to walk the hall of Congress. They want to take over. They want power. This is Joe Biden's party. These are the people who will be in charge of your future and the future of your children.
Well, that's a pretty good speech. If he was at the DNC, I would have clapped.
Don't sell me anymore, man. But even then, it's like, I'm sure Cory Bush agrees wholeheartedly with Joe Biden. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, they don't have much in common.
Are you kidding me? Come on.
Well, didn't you hear in the beginning the radical left is taking over the Democratic Party?
You're right. That's why we elected Joe freaking Biden. And then Kamala Harris took the VP slot. You're right. There's nothing but radical progressives. And then, what's her name? Whatever. It's not important.
Striped shirt lady?
Striped shirt lady. Patricia, the wife, said, is that Democrats are not satisfied with spreading the chaos and violence into our communities and want to abolish the suburbs altogether.
Abolish them.
Defund the suburbs.
Oh, they're coming for me, Joe.
Oh, my God. And what drives me even more crazy, and I don't have that quote for me, which kind of upsets me, but they were then talking about how, like, none of the protesters were arrested, but they were.
Yeah, when
they broke the law.
You cannot point a gun at somebody.
What they did was the epitome of what you should never do with a gun.
Irresponsible gun owners.
Right, exactly. They were irresponsible gun owners who were breaking gun laws or gun safety laws, and they should have been paid the price.
And her finger was on the trigger.
Yes.
She could have easily killed somebody.
Yes. It's ridiculous. And on top of that, the McCloskeys had no standing to do what they were doing because they weren't on their property. Yes, the protesters, or at least the group of protesters, were on private land, which was a gated community, right? But that wasn't owned by the McCloskeys.
You think they're probably part of their homeowners association there?
Oh, they're probably on the board. They're probably those like stereotypical board people that just will constantly like...
Your mailbox is the wrong color.
Right, exactly. That everyone just hates. We have 3 more days of that.
Yay.
And let's put it like this, too. On Monday night, they also had Tim Scott and Nikki Haley, who were supposed to be the more moderate people speaking. And they did, well, Tim Scott did okay for a Republican. Nikki Haley kind of made up a bunch of other crap and talked about cancel culture, which is insane, but fine. Especially in the fact that the president literally tried to cancel Goodyear.
Yeah, an American company.
Right. So
in a field that's populated with foreign companies.
Right. So let's not even talk about cancel culture. So they did that to try to appease to more moderate Republican voters who are probably still wanting to vote for Trump, but they're kind of turned off about how horrible and mean he is or something like that, right? But
that's what the Democrats did too.
Right. But those are like the best that they have to offer is Tim Scott and Nikki Haley. It's all downhill from there.
Yeah, it's all Trump's the whole way down.
Oh my God. Don't tell me the parties are the same.
If they bring in Trump's sister, I'll listen to that speech. Have you heard that audio clip?
Yes. Oh, it's great. If you haven't heard that audio clip, oh my God, we need a link in the show notes because it's so good. If you haven't heard the audio clip, it's literally just her talking about how crazy and deranged and full of crap her brother is. Yeah. It's the best. I'm not going to be watching any of the RNC coming up as opposed to a couple of clips here and there, but we now have that to look forward to, and fantastic.
One person who I didn't see on the speakers list and who apparently I'm not allowed to vote for now, Mr. Kanye West.
Yes, Kanye West is no longer on the Wisconsin ballot thanks to a 5-1 vote by the Wisconsin Elections Commission. It was based on several different accounts. The most egregious one is the fact that he turned in his signatures late, which to me seems like an open and shut case.
Yeah, and no explanation as to why they were even there at the last minute. Why not? If he apparently had 2,400 signatures, you only need 2,000.
Yep.
Why didn't they turn it in much earlier?
This is also aside from the fact that there have been several counts of the circulators for Kanye West's campaign of the birthday party. Jesus, I still can't get over the fact that it's the birthday party.
Terrible name.
But the fact that those circulators were shown to have been lying and deceiving the people to get those signatures. What's going on, Jason? What's happening?
It's politics, baby.
But like I said, it was a 5-1 vote. And a Mr. Robert Spindell of the Wisconsin Elections Commission had a very good reason and very thought out and in my opinion, pretty convincing logic as to why he voted for Kanye West. And it was really all about caring. Let me say it for you. Mr. West is an African American candidate, and I think we should all do we can to, after the terrible treatment that the black population in Milwaukee received during the April election, that we give them a choice.
What's he talking about there? What?
Oh, you mean how Republicans screwed us and screwed Milwaukee?
Oh, yeah. You mean after the Democratic governor and mayor tried to postpone the election due to the pandemic?
And also tried to extend mail-in voting because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And Republicans opposed it every single step of the way. And that Robin Voss, the Republicans or head of assembly, said that it was completely fine to go out in complete PPE and looked like a moron on the national stage. That bad treatment. and let's be real here. It's not like the fact that they were going out and screaming, we need more candidates to choose from. That's what pissed them off. You're right. It wasn't the absolute voter suppression. It was the fact that they didn't have enough choices. And in other news, and very exciting news, Steve Bannon and others were indicted for fraud. I'm so happy. You have no idea. Well, I'm not happy that they committed fraud. I'm so happy they were caught.
It's hard when you're running a non-for-profit charity and you skim money off the top. When you're that high profile, did they not assume that people were going to be watching?
Nah. But hey, at least we know that still Donald Trump associates with only the best people. So this all started from an online fundraiser called We Build the Wall from a U.S. Air Force veteran, Brian Kolfage. And basically, after starting the GoFundMe, they raised, you want to know how much money they raised, Jason?
$25 million, right?
More than $25 million to give to the government for a wall of the southern border. And because that's not how government fundraising works.
And how much do you think you could build with $25 million? Like a mile? 2 miles?
Ish.
Yeah, probably not even that much.
And since that's not how government funding works, Kolfage got Steve Bannon on the board as an advisor to basically find a way to get the money into the government system.
He found a way to get it somewhere.
He found a way to move it somewhere, but it wasn't the government. They moved, over $1 million in donations to personal luxuries like boats. What else did they have?
An SUV.
SUV.
Paid off some credit card debt.
Yep. As of right now, Bannon, as well as I think 3 others, are being charged with conspiracy to commit wire fraud and conspiracy to commit money laundering.
You know who else is on the board of We Build the Wall? Former Milwaukee Sheriff David Clark. Too bad he wasn't indicted, though. He is still a piece of garbage.
Even in news where we can't, get far enough away from him, we still end up finding him in this stuff.
Yeah. The only good thing he ever did was resign.
Oh, my God. And wasn't soon enough.
Well, on to some much more sober and serious news. We had a shooting on Sunday here in Kenosha, which is a suburb of Milwaukee. Jacob Blake was shot 7 times in the back by Kenosha police, apparently for trying to get into his car in front of his 3 children. So it has led to mass protests nationwide, as well as some rather extreme demonstrations in Kenosha. There's a lot of fires, a lot of people losing their businesses and their houses. If you are in the Kenosha area, and we do have some friends there, Kenosha Racine atheists and freethinkers are friends of ours, stay safe.
So, and I don't know if you saw it, but the Milwaukee Brewers posted a statement about it. The Milwaukee Bucks posted a statement about it. The Detroit Lions took a picture in solidarity. Several people like LeBron James have been talking about it since then. Even the Toronto Raptors were discussing boycotting a game 1 against the Celtics in response to what's going on as well.
Jacob Blake survived being shot. Apparently he's going to be paralyzed from the waist down, which is horrible. Somebody's got to provide for his family. Today. Yeah, but this comes while we are still protesting a police murder of George Floyd, and there's no awareness at all by the police. And it's very clearly they could have done any number of things that didn't involve lethal force. I just don't understand what they are thinking at this point. They're certainly not protecting anyone. They're not serving anyone. I don't know if that's what police looks like in this day and age. Then
why have them?
Yeah. Then we don't. You're not safe in your own neighborhood.
Right. And I am the first one to usually say I'm not going to armchair quarterback police, right? I'm not a police officer. I'm not qualified to speak, on what a police officer should be doing. And I have no problem waiting for facts to come out to understand what's going on, because still a lot of the issues are up in the air right now, unfortunately, because, oh man, shocker, the Kenosha Police Department does not have body cams yet, because they're not going to get those until 2022. So it shows how important body cams are. But what's driving me crazy is that we have evidence of a completely horrific event right in front of our eyes, and people are still refusing to see it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what context would make this better.
There is no situation in which that behavior by the police should be acceptable. For me personally, I'm not going to believe anything that comes out of the Kenosha Police Department. This investigation over the shooting is going to be quote unquote independent from the Department of Justice. And the reason why we have that law here in Wisconsin is from a 2004 murder by the Kenosha Police Department, in which they murdered Michael Bell in his parents' driveway in front of his mother and sister, and then lied multiple times to cover it up. And those officers never faced any justice. I urge everyone who's not aware of that case to go to michaelbell.info or look up Forensically Impossible on YouTube. It's a 20-minute video to watch that story and see where the history of that police department is and why I won't trust them, and I don't think anyone should.
So even in all of this, and I've been kind of disheartened by it too, after like a lot of the protests and marches that happened with George Floyd, I actually started seeing changes in a lot of my conservative friends and family. Like, not much, but minute changes, right? Where you could see that they were budging on these issues because they knew they weren't going to win the argument. And that's like, well, okay, yeah, they shouldn't have done that to happen. And you could see we'll call it the Overton window, just to make it easier, on this really slide further to progress or progressive things. So even though they're not for defunding the police per se, they're at least saying that we should reform the police. Well, it's basically the same thing, but fine, right? They're turned off by the wording. And that left me pretty hopeful. I see none of that with this. In fact, it goes like all the way back to 2016 with a lot of my friends and family, where they're using the same bad tropes. They're making a ton of assumptions. They're being logically fallacious just to try to justify this guy getting shot.
Anything to lick the boots of the police department.
So I have to ask, I don't want to assume these are bad people. I don't want to assume horrible racist tendencies necessarily. There has to be some kind of racial component here, because then you do have things where it's like you have hypocrisy of, we need to stand up for our rights and we need to stand up with our guns to take on the tyrannical government. Yet when it comes to black people being shot by the police, it's immediately, oh no, you need to obey.
Yeah, I think it's a lack of empathy and a lack of humanity. They don't see themselves in that situation.
Yeah, and I remember listening to Ibram X. Kendi, the author of Stamped and How to Be an Anti-Racist, and several others too. But he was talking about, and I think he was referencing another author who I don't remember, and I apologize, but talking about people dying of whiteness, where when we're talking about police killings right now, we are talking about people, even especially white people, dying in the suburbs because of bullshit and constant gun ownership and a constant on-edge police force. So they should be just as pissed off about this as anyone else is, right? But they're so hell-bent on making sure that black people stay down that they're risking their own lives to police and refusing to acknowledge the issues that are also going to kill them as well. And it's driving me absolutely insane. And I think that's such a well-put way of it, where racism is literally killing us in the suburbs at the same time because of ignorance.
All I can say, Joe, is justice for Jacob Blake, arrest those police officers, defund the police, all cops are bad.
And Black Lives Matter.
Left wing, we're going left wing all the way.
Let's talk about the Postal Service. So one of the biggest topics right now is the assault on our Postal Service, right? Especially from the Trump administration. And then you've probably seen several hearings from Louis DeJoy, who's the current appointed Postmaster General. Democrats are freaking out and worried about what's going on or what's going to happen. So we thought it'd be a good job to really dive in to understand why the post office is in the situation it's in right now. what we need to understand is that this is nothing new. Well, I mean, yes, they were saying the quiet parts out loud. The issues with the post office date all the way back to the Nixon administration, where the postal workers were actually on strike, which they actually weren't allowed to do at the time because it was against the law. And they said, screw that, we're going to do it anyway. Where they eventually came out to an agreement where the Postal Service was going to become its own independent entity. So they became this weird hybrid organization where it was part private business, part government agency. And they're going to be completely autonomous on their own thing. They're going to try to fund themselves. And it worked for a while. There were some stipulations, though. They had to get government approval to adjust their prices. They had to get permission to open and close new post offices. And they had to promise that they were going to mail to every single address in the country, something that other private entities don't do, especially when it's not profitable. So that was working for a while, all the way up until the 2000s, and you had the internet boom happen. So with the internet, you obviously had email and people were mailing each other less. You still had businesses mailing things out like flyers and whatnot. You still had special like ad things that they were going on as well. But personal use of the postal service dropped dramatically. And I'm talking like billions, right? So this led to the 2006 Postal Accountability and Enhancement Act. And while it was under the Bush administration at the time, it was seen to be pretty bipartisan. But this dealt the biggest blow to the Postal Service yet, requiring them to fund health and retirement benefits up to 50 years, I want to say, in the future for over the next 10 years, something that no other government agency has ever done or has to as of yet. And then no private business has to do either. So not only do you see a decrease in first-class mail, which is causing the post office a big loss in revenue, you're now seeing the post office have to pay out around $5 to $6 billion a year in pre-funding these health benefits. So from 2006 on, you had the Postal Service hemorrhaging money and constantly in the red, which is obviously dire for any organization. The GAO actually put it on its high-risk report, claiming that they didn't do something, or if Congress didn't do something quickly, it was going to eventually completely run out of money and have to shut down. So Republicans use this as a way to say that government systems don't work, and they were trying to further privatize the Postal Service.
Which the current Postmaster General would benefit from, seeing as how he still owns a bunch of stock in his former company.
Without getting further too much into it, that's basically what leads us today in all the craziness, right, Jason?
Correct. So Louis DeJoy is the current Postmaster General. Like most Republicans, he pulled himself up by the bootstraps and inherited a logistics company from his family.
Like most people do.
Yeah. Didn't you inherit a successful podcasting company from your family? He did eventually sell his family business, merging with XPO Logistics. He was chairman of the board for a while and still holds stock in the company today, which is more than likely illegal and is being investigated by the Inspector General. I have heard some criticism in DeJoy isn't part of some Trump conspiracy. He wasn't even appointed by Trump. The Postmaster General is selected by the Board of Governors,
which were mostly appointed by Trump.
There are currently 6 members of the board, all appointed by Trump. And one board member who was there when DeJoy was selected resigned over what he considered to be interference by Steve Mnuchin and the Trump administration, as well as them not following their procedure for hiring. They had selected a firm to do a search to find the next Postmaster General, but DeJoy's name, according to the statements, DeJoy's name did not come from that search, and he believes came from the Trump administration directly. So
you're saying totally legit?
Yeah, super legit. If that's not just a Trump appointee, which it's not supposed to be, that was part of the law in 1970 with Nixon.
Yes, I think so. Don't quote me.
The president would no longer be appointing the Postmaster General directly. But, what's another impeachable offense by Trump?
Well, and did you see any of the hearing?
I did see the highlights. I didn't watch the 5 hours worth.
Did you see Katie Porter take him to task?
Yeah, he doesn't even know how much a postcard costs to mail.
That's so good.
And doesn't even know how many ballots were cast, even rounding up by 10 million. He couldn't even say how many ballots went through the Postal Service last election, so he has no idea what to expect this time, but yet he's making promises that they'll get every ballot out, no big deal. I don't know how many pieces of mail
Well, and
that
how
is.
do you know that? Because when he was also questioned about it, he had no plan. He had nothing to go off of for these decisions.
Yeah. Meanwhile, they're still pulling out sorting machines, and I don't know, I can't claim to know what sorting machines are useful for sorting ballots, what aren't, but obviously the Postal Service is going slower currently. There's plenty of evidence to support that. There's people that rely on postal deliveries for their prescriptions that aren't getting them. They're cutting down overtime, so you can't wait for mail to be loaded onto a truck before you leave. You have to leave at the time you're supposed to, even if they've got mail to go out. So those things are going to wait till the next day, so that's late. This causes delays. And another aspect of the no overtime is the mail carriers. One of the things that's always been a service that they provide to people when you talk about mail-in ballots is they will sign as a witness. If you live by yourself, you don't have anybody that's going to be able to sign your mail-in ballot as a witness, you could have your mail carrier do it. Because they can't have overtime, that means they are instructed to not provide that service for people. And yet another instance of them doing everything they can to cause mail-in voting grief.
And look at where all this stuff is happening too. The Washington Post put out a really nice map of where all the delays are happening and all the cutbacks are happening. And shocker, it's happening in very large metropolitan areas, which also shocker, are Democrat areas.
Yeah, I know. People are like, well, we don't want to talk. It's all conspiracy theory. It's the Republican platform to suppress the vote. Does anybody deny that? It always has been.
Well, Trump said it.
Yeah.
Trump literally, now here's the problem with it too, right? I understand where there could be some separation in these issues and how Trump is just a complete idiot who makes all this stuff worse. But can we not really take the president seriously in what he says? Like, that seems like such a dumb thing to do.
Yeah, he specifically said that he does not want the post office to work because he doesn't want those millions of mail-in ballots.
He doesn't want the deal to happen because without the deal, without funding for the post office, you won't get mail-in voting. He's giving away the game.
There was even a study from the Proceedings of the National Academy of Science, PNAS, which showed that there is no advantage to either political party in a universal mail-in voting system. So I don't know why they keep pushing this propaganda that it's going to benefit the Democrats and hurt the Republicans if everyone is allowed to vote.
Right, and that's what the studies show, is that the only result that really happens after universal mail-in voting is more people vote. That's literally it. I mean, when you look at the states that have universal mail-in voting, their rates of participation are much higher than the rest of the country. And that's for Democrats and Republicans. So I don't know what he's doing here. And even then, especially in a pandemic, you would assume that with Trump's base being much older, Trump would want to have mail-in voting so more of his people go out and vote. I don't get it. And then even then, he voted by mail.
Yeah. Yes, Trump and his family vote by mail in Florida.
I'm speechless. What are we doing?
What do you think about the House bill that just passed to give funding to the Postal Service?
I mean, I'm happy about it. It's $25 billion going, well, it's a proposed $25 billion that will not get past the Senate. I do think it's really good for Democrats to show that, hey, we're actually doing something about this, right? The Postal Service is one of the most highly favored government agencies in the country right now. And both Democrats and Republicans agree that we should get this funded. So I don't see where the issue is coming from. In the House proposal, 26 Republicans sided with Democrats for this vote. So it has strong bipartisan potential. But even then, you still have money that's getting set aside for mail-in voting because of the pandemic. Therefore, Mitch McConnell's not going to do a damn thing about it.
Because Mitch McConnell is a Trump puppet, and Trump has made his position very clear that he does not want the Postal Service to get funding because he does not want mail-in voting.
I mean, I would also assume that Mitch McConnell just also hates the post office because he hates people living.
The only thing he loves is a nice slice of lettuce. Turtle.
Hey, thank you. I got it. Thank you.
The part I found interesting about that bill is that it causes the Postal Service to also stop some of the recent changes that they've been making, like the no overtime mandate, the removal of post
the
boxes.
decommissioning of mail sorting machines.
Yeah.
And And DeJoy did say he would stop this until after the election. He's not going to fix the damage he's already done, right? And
refuses to.
Right. And we also need to understand, too, that the decommissioning of mail sorting machines is also standard procedure most of the time, right?
Even though DeJoy said he didn't give the order to do it, he doesn't know who did, he doesn't know why, but he's just got to do it before the election unless you tell him to stop.
And even then, the number of mail sorting machines that were decommissioned, I think, tripled for what it was what's a normal, consistent basis. So even then, it's a complete outlier and it makes no sense. I'm really glad that they put those in there. I don't know what's going to happen with this bill. I don't think anything's really going to get through to the Senate. You could try saying that there's going to be some pressure with the Senate Republicans who are going to have to be up for re-election. But even then, I just don't see anything actually happening here. The only thing that we can eventually say is that when it comes down to the Postal Service, which is, again, highly favored for the entire country, the Democrats did something and the Republicans opposed it. So hopefully that's something that we can push forward to the election and even pass that too and get some of these people out of office.
If you can get your vote in.
Right. I think with all that said, it comes down to, what can we do to make the best use of our absentee ballot? First off, yes, you should still vote absentee, even though there's a lot of chaos going on around the Postal Service. Still request an absentee ballot. Don't go vote in person if you don't have to, because there's still a pandemic happening. So let's be safe about this.
Vote, everybody. The Republicans don't want you to.
So the best thing for you to do, request your ballot now, get it in as soon as possible. Thank you for listening. We hope to see you in the next episode. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at ThinkProPod. You can email us at thinkpropod@gmail.com. And remember, when in doubt, think progressively. I was like, right after I said that, Mike, nope. Yes, the birthday party is no longer. I have like that evil, yes. Yes, Kanye West is no longer on the Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Wow.
That's postal music.
Okay.
Passed for funding the post-apocalypse.
Post-apocalyptic.
Post-apocalypse. Blah, blah, blah.